There we go.
There we go now. Hopefully we'll be live now. And
Yay.
again, everybody, good morning and good afternoon and good evening, wherever you're tuning in from. Please remember, whether you're on live with us, which I hope that you are, but if you can't be and you catch the replay, don't forget to like and comment and share with others so that they can benefit from the important information that's going to be provided today. Now, I'm Evelyn Cosme, a leadership strategist for your life and your work. And I'm the CEO of Evelyn Cosme International, the creator of the Power of Be, a method for the development and empowerment of high achieving women. I'm passionate about guiding and teaching women how to improve the quality of their lives, something I've done throughout my whole career through self-mastery, leadership strategies with a focus to achieve a life and work that's value-driven and for purpose. Now, welcome to Extraordinary Women of Guts and Grace, a podcast about compassionate, courageous leadership. And my intention is to honor, celebrate, and highlight the great work of women in their industries. I also want to inspire other women and the next generation of leaders to take on leadership, first in their lives, and then for those they choose to lead. Now, our topic today is really important, especially in these times. And we're going to be talking about unpacking social justice and teen challenges in the 21st century. My guest is very special, and I've mentioned before, she is a woman of great integrity and a level of professionalism that I've always admired. And that's why I'm so happy to have her here today, especially because of the important work that she's doing. Tekoa Pouerie, the president of Tekoa Pouerie International, a certified bias and advocacy trainer. Hello, Tekoa. Thank you so much for being here and for being patient with all the technical
No
glitches
worries.
and my oversight.
No worries. I'm enjoying just the introduction. I got to listen to your podcast. I love the work that you're doing, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Tekoa. So I'm going to head on to your bio and share the information so people can get a feel for your important work and who you are as that woman of guts and grace. Uh, Tekoa Pouerie is a nonprofit executive subject matter expert, community influencer, author, and trainer. For nearly 2 decades, Tekoa has been passionate about raising awareness of the negative effects of bias. She has dedicated her professional career to helping others create positive changes within the workplace and communities. As a certified explicit trainer, Tekoa has trained over 10,000 individuals, including judges, trial lawyers, and HR professionals on how to recognize, reduce bias when in the workforce. So Tekoa is totally committed to improving social and racial equity. Her extensive track has helped improve the legal interactions with youth of color, create better law enforcement officers, position organizations to increase their knowledge of diversity and inclusion, as well as providing monetary resources to communities in need. Educating others is only part of Tekoa's unique skills. She understands that for change to happen, monetary resources need to be available to support the cause. She has helped raise over $10 million for nonprofits, including Power Promise, Harbor House, and Pace Center for Girls. Her fundraising efforts and development strategies help organizations reach their long-term revenue goals that help change the lives of women, children, and youth in need. Tekoa's unique blend of philanthropy and training will help educate, transform, and improve community leaders. And some of her awards, it's quite a list, but I'm going to mention them because they're so impressive. And we have to definitely celebrate Tekoa because of these awards. Congressional Recognition Awardee in 2011 and again in 2014. The Sheriff Citation Medal Awardee in 2012. Hats off to Success Honoree in 2017. Circuit 9 Advisory Board member in 2011 and appointed by the former DJJ Secretary Wansley Walters, a chairwoman between 2018 and 2020. Mayor of Orlando's Community Investment Panel, member 2018 to the present, and Orange County Mayor's Domestic Violence Commission, a member from 2019 to the present as well. And the Department of Juvenile Justice Volunteer Honoree in 2019. And the most recent one, and we'll be talking more about that, the Orlando Business Journal Diversity Honoree in 2021. Congratulations, Tekoa. Now, I'm going to go right ahead with the questions because we have limited time, and I want to make sure that we get through all of the many questions I have and those that might arise during our conversation. Tekoa, what did you want to be when you grew up? You know that in childhood we play games and we role play. Did any of that translate at all into who you have become and the success you've had?
Absolutely. So again, thank you for having me on, Evelyn. I just want to say kudos to you. Just the topic of your podcast, Extraordinary Women of Guts and Grace, I think is phenomenal. And so I just thank you for creating a platform for women that's unafraid, women that is breaking, that are breaking the glass ceiling and doing history making things for the next generation of girls. So thank you so much for that. I sit through my bio. It makes me cringe every time because I never do the work that I'm doing for a reward. I do it because I'm passionate about it.
Absolutely.
And even as a child, my mom said I was very talkative. I would talk. Because if I saw something, I said something. If something was wrong, I spoke up about it. And so that's always kind of been my mantra that, if you have confidence and if you're a leader, you speak up for what's right.
Absolutely.
And you let individuals know when it's wrong. And so for me, that career goal of being able to speak up for what was right was to be an attorney. And so when I was younger, I wanted to be a lawyer. I researched it. I wanted to go to law school. And so when I graduated from high school, I had been in the debate club. I did a lot of speeches. I won like the Tropicana Speech Award, if you remember that.
Yeah, wow.
And I was never afraid to speak. Even at my church, I would stand up and I would speak. And so when I graduated, I went to college and I majored in criminal justice. My minor was in legal studies and African American studies. And so when I started researching the law and I started researching the history of African Americans and doing a lot of research, I began to get a love for juveniles, for the teenagers. And so as I did research, I found out that it was an overwhelming disproportion of minority youth that were entering the criminal justice system. And so I became very passionate about speaking up for the underserved. So while I was at UCF, I was on the trial team. I was a college trial lawyer. We traveled all over the world.
How wonderful.
Competing as an attorney. We even competed against Harvard and Yale and came in first place. And so I really just had a love for law. And then I took the LSAT, I applied for law school, and then I had a fork in the road. I had a moment in my life. I didn't realize I had a story, quote unquote. I grew up in poverty. I grew up on welfare. My mother had 5 children. And at the age of 14 years old, my mother passed away.
Oh, wow.
2 years later, my father passed away. And so when my mother passed away, my youngest sibling was 4 years old. And we grew up in an environment where I had family members that were being incarcerated. I was around crime. And so I had to make a decision. Do I go the right or do I go left? And so I chose to make right decisions. I didn't want to be on the other side of the criminal justice system. And so where the fork in the road, fast forward, I'm studying law. I want to be an attorney. I want to speak up for the underserved. And I was asked to speak at a banquet at my college. And so I took the opportunity and I just shared my story. I kind of cried through it. You know, the first 2 times you tell your story is therapeutic.
Yeah, of
And
course.
as I told my story of overcoming the obstacles I faced by losing my mother, losing my father, being around poverty. My mother didn't graduate from high school. My father didn't graduate from high school. And the stereotypes that come with that, you know, people that looked at me as this little Black girl in in poverty, no parents, parents didn't graduate. They put me down that path of she'll be a teen mom, she'll be a criminal, she won't finish high school. But I had to break away from the bias that's associated sometimes with your economic status, the bias that's
Right.
associated with your race, the bias that's associated with your family dynamics. And so I was able to break away from that. So when I gave this story, when I gave this speech at the banquet, my professor was sitting at a table and he took a napkin and he started writing on a piece of paper. And so after my speech, my professor handed me that napkin. He said, "You need to travel and tell your story." He said, "I wrote everything
Oh,
down. This is what you need to do." And
oh,
so I was like, "Really?" He said, "You have a remarkable story." Again, it was my life. I didn't see it as a story. And so I took his advice. I decided to hold off on law school and I started traveling the world, sharing my story. That one banquet opened doors for me. And I've traveled all over the US. I've traveled out of the country. I've been to Australia telling my story and giving people hope. And so
oh,
my
wow.
career kind of took a different trajectory, but it brought me back to today where I'm still working with law enforcement. I'm still working with program providers that are working with keeping youth out of the criminal justice system. But specifically, my passion is for brown and Black kids.
Wow, what a story. And it's so inspiring because I think a lot of people, and this is why I wanted to do this podcast, everyone has a story. And
Absolutely.
and achieving success, it doesn't mean you didn't have any hurdles. It doesn't mean there weren't mountains in the path that you had to climb and overcome, and I want everyone, girls and youth and young adults and women in general, anyone can be inspired by a story like that, to understand that you can achieve anything that you have a burning desire to achieve. And of course, having the right people in your life, people that mentor you, that guide you, people that you can trust, which is a big issue for youth who are going through the system, who are in living under certain circumstances, to trust adults or the system at all. So you're giving a lot of people hope that things will be improved in the legal system and that they can look forward to having a life of fulfillment and success on a personal and on a professional in the professional perspective as well. So I thank you so much for sharing that story. And it's a hard story. It's not an easy story, just the trauma. And you and I that understand trauma because of the work that we've done and our own experiences with trauma
Yeah.
as women. I do appreciate sharing that. Now, so firsthand, that was your experience with bias. Was there anything else um, that created that desire in you to work with youth and to work with the biases that exist today?
Absolutely. You said it spot on that it wasn't just me making this decision. I had mentors. I had individuals in my community that saw a light flickering inside of me.
Yeah.
You know, I saw individuals in my community. I knew individuals that said, "Hey, you can make a difference. You can be someone." And believe it or not, and I like to share this, but growing up in the environment I grew up in, a lot of times I was around criminals, I was around drug dealers. And even the drug dealers would say, "Hey, don't go down this path. You're a good girl. Stay focused. You can make a difference." And more importantly, I had a nonprofit organization called People Who Care. And these were teachers that would volunteer their time after work to work with youth that needed that additional hope, because they cared. They were people who cared.
Mhm.
And so I became a part of that organization. We didn't have a boys and girls club in my town, but they were kind of like that organization where we could be around other people that were enduring trauma. There was a group called Compassionate Friends, and it was other youth
Oh.
that said, hey, I lost my grandmother, or I lost my father through a divorce. And so we were able to talk and share and get all that trauma out. And so it was those organizations that helped me. And my thought was, it because of that early intervention, Evelyn, and you understand early intervention, because I had early intervention, it helped shape the person that I am today. It helped me see other options. It helped me see hope. And so because of that experience, I grew a love to be able to go out and grab those other little Tekoas, those other little kids that were dealing with things that I dealt with, because that organization cared. And I think we live in such a time now that we don't take time to care.
Mhm.
We're moving so fast. Everything is so quick, and you have everyone that wants to be famous or be an influencer. I want to be successful. I want to be the next boss, that we're not stopping to care for our neighbors. We're not stopping to care for our friends, children, or our children's friends that need some extra love. And I think it's important that we get back to that, because my community raised me, and it raised me in a positive way. And it changed my trajectory because people cared.
And I understand the importance that you're focusing on with the community involvement, and it is about uh, everyone, the whole village, being part of that process, you know. And I remember when I was growing up, if I was in the neighborhood doing anything I shouldn't have been
Yeah.
doing, my mother would have heard about it, you know, and my mother would not get into a negative rage with the neighbor or anyone who called me out. She'd say, thank you, and pull me in and deal with it, whatever
Yeah.
way she understood was necessary. So, and obviously there are extremes to everything,
Mhm.
and that's what we have to be careful about. So people are guarding their children so very much now because of everything that's
Yeah.
occurring. We've worked with domestic abuse, we've worked with human trafficking, and all those social issues, and we understand the difficulties of making sure that children are safe and secure nowadays, more than ever, because of the facility that traffickers have and pedophiles, etc., may have. So anyone in the community who has their heart in the right place and their mind and are willing to reach out to help youth, please be part of a cause, be part of a community service. And I know that Tekoa is going to touch on that later on, because we'll be going into that discussion on how to get involved in your community. So I have to ask you, how, and you and I have been in the field for many years. I've dedicated my life to children and mothers, because if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy, you know. And that's a reality. So we have to help moms, single moms, moms everywhere, even if they're married, to support them. This is, especially now, such a difficult time. Moms having to leave their jobs to come back home to take care of children because of the circumstances. And nobody said, daddy's going to stay home. You know, that's not common. All of that responsibility was placed again on the mother, and like so many other things, and we could have a whole discussion on that one. And but going back to the type of work that we do, that in many cases, many industries, not just this one, many industries are male dominated. How do you maneuver being a female leader, minority, woman, I mean, the whole thing? How do
Yeah.
you deal with that when training? The majority of the people that you train are male law
Yeah.
enforcement.
Yeah. And I think the name of your podcast says it. It takes guts and it takes grace. And so for me, I'm a woman of faith. And so everything I approach, I pray for grace. I pray
Mhm.
for grace because, and I want to touch on that first, as a mother, as a wife, as a sister, as an aunt, as a leader, in my community, as a leader on my job, as a leader in my family, it's a lot of people pulling on me in different areas in different ways that sometimes at the end of the day, it's very little left for me to attend to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I get those moments where it's, man, it's not enough for me, it's not enough hours in the day, because I'm a woman of faith, I pray for grace.
Mm-hmm.
And grace is, I often give this as a scenario: when a bill is due and you call and ask for a grace period, it's that extension of time.
Yes.
And so when you call on grace, it gives you that extra wind, it gives you that extra boost to say, you know what, I still got more inside of me. And
Nice.
every time I get to those days that I feel like I've given my all and I push to give a little bit more, that grace opens doors for me to get motivated and inspired, and sometimes pushing an extra moment to take a call or to counsel with someone or to encourage someone. It makes me remember what my purpose is. And whenever
Mm-hmm.
you're able to tap into your purpose, it makes you feel alive. There's people that are working every day, 40 hours a week, some 50 hours a week, but at the end of their week, they still feel like they haven't done anything,
Mm-hmm.
because they're going through the motions and they're going through work, but they're not tapping into their purpose. They're not tapping into their passion. And in order to tap into your purpose and to tap into your passion, it takes grace, but it also takes guts. And I
Absolutely.
want to be someone that don't leave this earth with my passions and my dreams going to the grave with me.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, because I saw family members die so young, I realized that time is not promised to us. And everybody has an expiration date. And so I had to remember that and give it my all. And so it takes a lot. Being a woman, being a minority, there was a lot of walls, a lot of things. But I've always believed that if the door opens, if the table avail itself, it's because you're supposed to be there.
Absolutely.
And I sometimes I've been at tables that I mentally felt like I was not qualified for. I would be at the table kicking myself like, say something smart, say something smart. But here's the decision: either I could stay at that table and learn from those that are more qualified or more experienced than me, or I could pull back and say, I'm never coming back to that table again.
Mm-hmm.
And so to have guts, sometimes it's uncomfortable.
It is,
To have
definitely
courage,
is.
sometimes it feels like I'm a fish out of water, but
Mm-hmm.
stay there until you learn how to breathe. Stay there
Absolutely.
until you learn how to swim. Stay there until you learn how to fly. And so I've been at tables where I've been the little tadpole, but I stayed there until I developed. And then I'm a student. I'm always learning. I'm always
Absolutely.
looking for mentors. I'm always reading books. Today I'm downstairs. Usually when I do podcasts, I'm upstairs and there's books all behind me, but I'm a student. So it also takes learning and knowing that you're not always the smartest person in the room, and that's okay.
Yes.
Learn from the person that is.
Mm-hmm.
And when
Absolutely.
it gets uncomfortable, push past those feelings and stay at the table, because we need more voices of
Mm-hmm.
people at tables where no one at the table looks like you.
Mm-hmm.
No one at
Absolutely.
the table has your experience, because that introduces new thought, that introduces new perspective, that introduces innovation, that introduces empathy. So
Mm-hmm.
when I train law enforcement, I train for the National Criminal Justice Institute,
Wow.
and they send me all over to train. Thankfully, now I train virtually. And so when I train, um, I go in with that mantra of, they need to hear from my perspective. They need to hear from my experience,
Mm-hmm.
because there are some people that are in law enforcement that have not. They only go into communities of color when it's being a 911 call.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So we have to have the voices of the community at the table. We have to have the voices of the youth at the table. And so I do my best to try and represent that, but I also open my ear to hear from them as well, because there's really good law enforcement officers. The majority of them got into the work because they want to save lives. And Evelyn, we've partnered with law enforcement with domestic violence that say, hey, I want to help. What can I do? I've partnered with law enforcement my entire nonprofit career with
Mm-hmm.
programs that we do through PACE and Power Promise. And so it's having both voices at the table to hear all sides, which creates understanding and empathy.
Absolutely. And I think something you mentioned about purpose, so many young girls, women, even women, grown women, don't know what their purpose is,
Yeah.
and because they don't know what it is, they can't identify it with clarity. The passion is not there. And then they're trying different things, which is fine to experiment with different things in life to know what really resonates with yourself. But that's why I focus a lot on developing that part in women who are interested in finding out what their purpose is and get that passion, that fire going and igniting that. Now, empathy, and that's why I always sign off compassion and benevolence with each other, because it's so important. We are different in many ways, but in so many ways, we all want the same thing. We want to be loved. We want to love. We want to be appreciated. We want opportunities for growth and expansion. We may not know how to go about it at times, especially young girls, but that's why women like you and myself and so many others that are working with youth in different ways have to take a stand, have to speak up, and leaders do need to be seen and heard. And that's what it's all about. We have to get the message out and represent each community, people of color, minorities. And it's so important so that we have understanding and we can come together in a way that is a benefit for all the parties involved, all the stakeholders. You know, you may get some more today, I may get some more the next day, but we start balancing out and having consideration and respect for each other. And the differences are what make us so wonderful. The foods, the culture, the music, it's just so many things, especially with women. We have a multiplicity of passions. We're multi-passionate and we can do so many things. You have a family, a beautiful family, by the way. I saw the picture on your website. They are beautiful. I congratulate you. And I don't know how you find time for all these passions, though. Tell me about that. Tell me
So
about that.
it takes
Family, work, podcast, everything.
yeah. As you said, it takes a village. It takes a village. It's not just me, my babies. I love them so much. Maximus and Bella. Max is 8 years old now. Bella is 7.
Wow.
And so it takes a village. I'm blessed with a phenomenal mother-in-law. She's actually
Oh.
cooks the best food. And she just has such a loving heart, and we're so blessed. They're retired. They did their time working and investing, and so they were able to retire. And so my mother-in-law, she comes in. She was just here the other day. She'll come, on a Sunday, and she'll come and say, "Hey, let me help out." And so she helps out a lot, and it's just a blessing because I can't give my kids my mother, but they have my husband's mother. And so they have such a love for her. And then the culture, as you said, I can teach them my culture, but she can teach them her culture. And so they're able to learn both from my African American background and my husband's Dominican American background. And it makes for a very diverse children to grow up and understand and embrace their culture. So my mother-in-law helps out a lot. And then I have, an assistant, and I have different people to help out. So it takes a village. It's a lot. And then I had to also get rid of mommy guilt.
We've all been through that.
Guilty.
We're saving the world.
Yes,
With the
I
baby
was so
underneath
guilty.
the briefcase.
Absolutely. So I had to get rid of mommy guilt and realize that the hard work that I'm doing is creating a future for our children. We're able to
Absolutely.
provide for them in a way that our parents were not able to provide for us. And so we're able to give them a different experience when it comes to financial wealth. The other thing is also with my daughter, I want her to see a woman working. I
Absolutely.
want her to see a woman receiving awards. When I received an award the other week from the Orlando Magics. And I brought them, I had 4 tickets. They said, you can bring any 4 people. So of course, one was my husband. I said, the other 2, I want to be my children, because I want my daughter to see that. I want my son to see that hard work pays off. And so it puts those images and it sets standards for them. So they know that if mommy did it, if daddy did it, I got to do even more, And so it's a healthy balance, but I am intentional about making sure I do spend time with them. There's times I get on the floor and just get eye level with my daughter, so she has my undivided attention, no cell phone, no computers, and she loves makeup and doing
Woo.
nails. So but
What
it takes a
fun.
village and it takes intentionality.
Absolutely. And I can't imagine a Dominican background, the food must be amazing, music and
Yes.
everything. What an
Yeah.
exciting life that you have. And look at Tekoa, little Tekoa, who she
Mhm.
has become. It's so extraordinary. to know that and see that. I'm so happy for you.
Thank
Now,
you.
when it comes to girls, and we've been seeing in the news a lot, even in Puerto Rico recently, a young woman was murdered by her boyfriend. She was pregnant, and there was an outrage, an outpour from the community and women standing it, like it's happened many times. Now, I think people are a little bit confused as to why men are doing this. And we talk about training girls and training girls, but ladies and gentlemen, we have to train boys very young to
Yeah.
respect women, for moms to be like Tekoa, to be go-getters, to move forward, to show what a woman of quality, of guts and grace is about.
Yeah.
And it starts at home.
Yeah.
The teachers can't do it all. You know, we try. I've been in the educational system. I've been a therapist, an educator, and a leader for over 25 years. And everybody has to be involved, but everything starts at home, or whomever the caregivers are. In your case, you were blessed with people that had your back and were encouraging you to stay on that path. Besides the fact that you had a spark that's very divine and sacred, you wanted that for yourself, which is so important. Uh,
Absolutely.
and now, working at pace, speak to the social justice and the challenges that teens face now for the 21st century. And if it's appropriate, plug in there the work that you're doing with pace, which is
Absolutely.
so important right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. So in addition to my consulting business, I do on the side, I train law enforcement, and now I'm doing more corporate trainings as well, because a lot of people want
Good.
to know about implicit and
Yes.
explicit bias. In addition to that, I'm actually the director of Center Advancement at Pace Center for Girls, which is a statewide organization throughout the state of Florida. We have centers ranging from Miami all the way to Escambia. So I work, even though I live in
Wow.
Orlando, I work at the national office, which is in Jacksonville. And I work with our centers on two things: fundraising and advocacy. And
Mhm.
so I tie our fundraising back to our cause and our mission, which speaks to the advocacy, the work that we're doing to advocate on behalf of girls. And so when we talk about social justice, when we talk about bias, there's two groups of individuals in the United States that have been disenfranchised. One is women. Women, we were told what roles we're supposed to be in. We
Mhm.
couldn't vote. We didn't have say, even from a domestic violence standpoint. That used to be okay for your husband to beat on you. And we've advocated, you and
Yes.
I both, Evelyn, advocated to have more laws in place to protect women
Mhm.
that are being abused. And then also people of color that, again, did not have the right to vote, could not drink at certain water fountains. So there's a history there. And if we're true to that history created what we call biases, that unconscious bias that we may not control, but those thoughts that come to mind if your boss is a woman. You know, if you get a job at a corporate office in downtown Orlando and you show up the first day and the CEO is a woman, those thoughts that are associated. If you're going in for heart surgery and your surgeon is Black,
Mhm.
or if you talk to someone and they don't speak English. And
Mhm.
I tell my children all the time, if someone doesn't speak English, or if English isn't their first language, let's say they speak English and Spanish, they're actually pretty smart because they know two languages. But there's this stigma that comes with it. You know, all these videos say, you know, speak English, but there are some people that are bilingual or trilingual. That's a good thing. That's something to celebrate.
Exactly.
But
Mhm.
because of the negative history that we associate based on certain characteristics, we have unconscious bias. So at Pace Center for Girls, we do a couple things. One is we help young women that have endured trauma. They may have been abused, molested, gone through bullying, low self-esteem, whatever that trauma may have been for them. We give them an opportunity to come into our center for an entire year. It's not a residential facility; it's a day program. And so they leave their traditional school to attend our school. And at Pace, they get academics and they get social, the counseling, the intervention of someone working with them and seeing that little light to help develop and give behavior development so that we're able to put them back into their school and they're able to function at a higher level. In addition to that, we advocate for social justice. We're always at Tallahassee. being a
Mm.
part of laws, being a part of movements to make sure that we don't forget our girls. And some of the issues that girls face is very different than what boys face. And as
Of
we
course.
look into the criminal justice system, we find out that a lot of times our girls are arrested for things that are results to bullying, or results to them dealing with some things that only girls are specific, that they deal with. As we look at minority girls, and minority boys as a whole in the state of Florida, the minority youth makes up about 31% of the population, but over 60% of the prison population, or the
Oh,
criminal justice population. And so there's a huge disproportion. So we equipped our girls, we equip the teachers and those that work with our girls to understand some of their uniqueness that they're dealing with, both in their environment because of their culture or their experiences. So one of the things that we did in 2019, before the world shut down,
mm.
at Pace Center for Girls, I was a part of a task force where we became certified in implicit and explicit bias. And once we received that certification from Covey, our CEO made it mandatory for every employee to be trained on implicit and explicit bias.
Great.
So that as we work with our girls from their unique backgrounds, that we check our biases at the door, that we
Mhm.
don't treat them a certain way. You know, even in domestic violence, as you know, when I used to
Yes,
train, I had a nurse say, you know, why does she keep going back? Something is wrong with her.
of
That's a bias that we
course.
have with abused women. And if you truly study, you would know it takes about 6 times for a woman to leave for
Yes.
so many different reasons.
Mhm.
And so when you're dealing with a girl that's coming in that may be more mature than her age, let's put that bias to the side and see, was she molested? Has she been sexually active against her own choice?
Mhm.
And so we got to recognize those biases and check them at the door so we can truly provide solutions for those that need it the most.
And I've always felt that children should never go through trauma.
Yeah.
And as a mother myself, my son's a grown man now, thankfully, and in the military and whatnot. But the thought of him being harmed or anyone in the family being harmed at all, we have such a great responsibility to call it out. If you suspect any kind of abuse, please call it out. Please do the right thing. If it's investigated and there's nothing going on, great, hallelujah, but at least and you might create an enemy from that neighbor or that person that but you did the right thing for that child. And we have to be responsible also when we report different things that we are suspecting as well. So I encourage everyone to take that in consideration, the biases alongside the domestic abuse and girls in the system, children that are adopted or not adopted that are in the system as well, who are orphans. I mean, we have so many different sectors and populations to deal with children that anyone and everyone can get involved. And we're reaching our time now because I know you have another meeting, but how can someone effectively make impact to better their community? What would be your suggestions?
Great question. I would say, first is partner with your community leaders. A lot of times the leaders of the community have a stronger voice than the police officers.
Yes,
Sometimes the community leaders
we
have
know
a
that.
stronger voice than the parents. And so whatever your zip code, whatever your area is, really find out who those community leaders are. If it's pastors, if it's priests, find out who your politicians are in that area, connect with them because they're in the business of service. And so you being able to meet with them should be a free meeting. It should be something they want to do, and find out what their concerns are for the community and how you can help bring about solutions. Also, remember that we can't solve everybody's problem, but find out what it is that you are gifted to do.
Mhm.
It could be starting a dance program after school to keep kids out of
Yes.
crime.
Mhm.
It
That's
could be
simple.
teaching girls how to sew so they don't go and steal clothes. It could be etiquette courses. You know, when I was growing up, you had etiquette courses, how to walk, how to speak, how to hold your glass, which fork to use. You know, if we want to prepare our next generation for success, let's give them the tools to make them successful. You may, you know, your call may be to teach them how to write resumes. What are those tools they need that's going to create success? And so first step is get to know those community leaders, partner with them, work together, and think about the gift that you bring to the table. And let's be selfless. How can I take this gift and offer it to my community? Or if not my community, the community that's in need, that's in my city. And those women and men that are listening today, I just want to say that every one of you have something inside of you to be a part of the solution. Every one of you.
They sure do. And because we're short of time, just mention any events or any fundraising activities that you might want to right now so that
Absolutely.
we can share
I know
that.
your
And we'll
podcast.
post it in the comments as
Okay.
well. Yes.
Excellent. I would say number one, for fundraising opportunities, how to partner with our next generation of girls, pacecenter.org, pacecenter.org. We always have opportunities for partners. You can go on there and find out how you can partner, how you can be effective in the work that we're doing. So I encourage you to go to that website. And then some of the things I'm working on, I do have a book coming out called Understanding Racial Bias, Erasing the Lines That Divide. So check it out on Amazon. Next
Awesome.
month it'll be available for purchase.
Great. And let us know when that happens and I'll announce
Absolutely.
it at some point.
Thank
And
you.
we're coming to an end, definitely. Your final words of wisdom regarding leadership and being successful as a leader.
Sure. My number one advice that I give specifically women leaders, if that's okay, is get to the table.
Mm-hmm.
Get to the
Great.
table where decisions are being made. Don't disqualify yourself. If there's a promotion opportunity, if there's a job opening on your current job or your future job, or if you're a business owner, get to the table where decisions are being made. We need your voice in decision making. We need your face in decision making. So begin to think about that table in your industry that you're not sitting at. You know, in Thanksgiving, you have the adult table and you have the children table. Sometimes we think we're at the table just because we're in the room, but sometimes we're not. You can voice your opinion, but is it truly making change? So get to the table where decisions are being made and do everything you can to make your voice heard at that table.
Thank you so much. And I'd like to thank you so much, our
Welcome. Thank
special
you.
guest, Tekoa Pouerie, president of Tekoa Pouerie International, certified bias and advocacy trainer, and definitely an extraordinary woman of guts and grace, for sure. She's on the list. And here to view the video, and I'll be sharing it on all the social media platforms. And as always, I sign off with so much self-love. Please have self-love above everything, compassion and benevolence with everyone around you. You deserve it. I deserve it. Tekoa deserves it. And everyone around us deserves it too. Keep the peace, so important at this time. Thank you, Tekoa, again. I appreciate it. It was great seeing you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Thank you. And to end this, I'd like to share the announcements for today. The website will be up definitely now in May. There's been some technical glitches to it, but it's all put together. I'm very excited about it, and I will be open for services again. And one of the things that I do is help women, as I mentioned, find their passion, their purpose, self-mastery, so that they can become for purpose and value-driven leaders, first of their own lives, and then of those they choose to lead. And the other thing is helping women to learn how to be seen and heard, part of the training that I do with the power of be. More talk on that some other time, and be on the lookout for an ebook and also a course that will be on one of the major platforms as well. Much love to you all. Thank you for joining us. Bye.